That mean we're live?
It does mean you're live. What a great way to start.
Great way to start. Hello, we're Sarah Baptist, urban landscape artist, here at Open Studio, day number 2. And I am very happy to be here with Wendy Mitchell, who's going to talk to us about framing today. She owns Talleyville Frame Shoppe. And I know I've used her services and been very happy, and I know I have some clients who have used her, and she's a very talented framer, and she's going to give us a little demonstration and talk about framing and answer some questions. If you have questions, Mitchell will relay them, and I'm just going to hand it over.
All right.
So thank you for being here today. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
I always
And-
enjoy their open house. It's always fun.
Okay, take it away, Wendy.
So, hi. Yes, Wendy Mitchell, Talleyville Frame Shoppe at the corner of Silverside Road and Concord Pike. We do all kinds of framing. Sarah's been in a couple of our shows. We have art shows as well. I've always enjoyed her work. And today we're going to talk a little bit, pretty informal, pretty laid back. We're going to talk a little bit about color and style and what a different frame can do for different pieces of artwork. Sarah has provided a couple of paintings here on panel. She usually works this way, although she does some figure drawing and other things on paper. Today we're going to focus more on this kind of thing, painting on canvas or panel that doesn't require glass and matting and borders and other parts of framing. So this is more just about the frame. There are different styles of frames for something like this. Sarah tends to use a floater frame. That's what these are, and what that means is your art floats inside the frame, and the frame doesn't cover any of the art, it just surrounds it a little bit. I have an example of a floater frame here as well. And what you can do with a floater frame is you can give it a little space, so there's a little space around the artwork. You can float it out a little bit. I didn't bring something to do, so I'm going to demonstrate like that. To push the art out a little. Or you can make it very tight to the edge, like down on this side. So you can just get an edge of a frame. This picks up sort of the browns in this one and makes it much warmer. It's a clean line, it's very minimalist, and it's a nice style with what Sarah has. This is also a floater frame. You can leave more space if you want, and that gives you a different look. It sets it apart a little bit and gives you a little space around it so it doesn't feel as closed in. And you can see the difference in how the white presents. It picks up more of these light lines and the crosswalks and the light car and that sort of thing. So this is just a completely different, brighter look than the dark brown one. Sarah attaches hers. She gets a slightly different type of floater frame. She attaches hers by gluing the panel in. There are different ways to attach them. We'll talk about that a little bit. So you can see the difference. This brings up the warm tones and makes it a whole different look than the white. Then there's a more traditional frame. Would be a frame that the art fits into from the back. So it covers a little the edge, but you can get more size. So it gives you a bigger look if you want a bigger frame. If you've dropped your panels while you're painting them and clipped the corners a little bit, this is nice because it covers up those edges. If you have a painting that has a lot of detail right close to the edge, a regular frame's not going to work so well. This is a bigger, chunkier guy. That brings out a different tone. And you can see how just putting one in a different color frame makes all the difference. We've got different things here. Here's black. This is very popular right now, the clean black line. That's a more modern look now. The younger kids, the millennials who are not that young, but they're younger than me. A lot of black frames happening in decor right now. The nice thing about a black frame is it becomes neutral. It gives it a strong outline if you put it on a light wall or a wall with some color, but it doesn't pick out any specific color in the painting, so it gives you a lot of pop, a lot of contrast. Let's try this guy. This one has a lot of lighter, more pastel colors. The white frame would probably look nice on this. And natural wood would be another way to go. That picks up some of these subtle colors in here, but allows the other brighter colors to show up. It's not as stark as the white frame. If you have softer tones in the room, this would show up. This would look great on a lovely teal wall. So there's different styles, different things. You can see they all just give it a different look. This is a little more traditional. It's a silver one with a little softer edge. So now this can hang in a little more formal room if you want. But it's still pretty transitional. It can go anywhere. It's not as bold of a statement as the black. And on the yellow wall, it brings up some of the yellows in the picture, but this gets a little gold, so it's a warmer look. Even though it's a kind of a silver, it's a warm silver. So yeah, there's all different kinds of shades and styles. I thought this would be good on yours because it's a subtle color.
Yeah.
This little could be rustic, could be modern. It's a softer look. The thing that sometimes people forget about frames, and artists are often guilty of this, is they think of it as a package or part of the furniture, or it has to match this and it has to match that. You want it to go with the artwork. You want it to match the artwork and be sort of finish the artwork. So that when it's on the wall and you change the entire room, the artwork and the frame still work together. So that's how I like to think of it, as finishing it off. I'm going to try one more traditional, because I don't think it's going to do anything for your artwork. So this is a very traditional brown furniture finish frame. And while it's okay, it's not necessarily helping this piece of artwork, and it's not bringing it to its full potential. So you can definitely get the wrong frame, but for the most part, there's no right and wrong. There's get what you like and what makes you happy when you look at that artwork all day, every day. Here's a thinner. This one will look good on here. So this is a good example of sort of completing the artwork. This just feels like it's finished. It goes with the colors. It doesn't stand out on its own. It just becomes a finished edge for the piece. Then you can get fancy. And you can double up frames. You can mount one inside another. So it gives it more space. Gives it a little more space. You still get this sort of soft outline, but you can get a bigger footprint on the wall, and it's just more, it draws more attention to the piece without being a big bulky frame. Another thing, I don't think this applies so much to yours, and I don't have a good sample of it. You can do a linen liner in a frame. And what that is just a little, it's a linen section, linen covered wood piece that goes inside a frame to provide a transition between the painting and the frame. So whereas with a piece of art on paper, which I don't think you have any framed here, I didn't bring any, you would use a matting, a border, to keep the glass off the surface and to provide a transition before the frame. The linen liner does that for oils and acrylics and paintings on panels or canvas. So all of these are good options, but you can see kind of what the different colors do to the artwork and how it can change. Your wall color can affect what kind of frame you might want as well, but people change wall colors, so you want to have something that you feel will go with everything. And a lot of what Sarah does with this sort of silver and black floater frame is perfect for just about anything. That'll go anywhere. But if you want to, get something a little more suited to your house or your personality, then you can go to custom framing. One of the reasons I brought all these is these are standard size. Sometimes artists paint in standard sizes. You don't always have to get a full custom frame. You can get nice ready-made frames. These are all frames that we build at the store out of scraps. We do purchase some, but we have some standard sizes and nice finishes. So you can get a nice custom look without necessarily paying full custom price. course, we have a huge variety of custom moldings, thousands of them, that you can choose anything you could possibly want. The only other thing I was really going to talk about was just ways to put things in frames, but I don't know if many of you will be installing yourself. For the panel type of thing, in the way that they're mounted in here, you can either glue or you can fasten, you can use Velcro, you can do different ways to keep things in. You can screw them in from the back with something called an offset clip. I think you've used those on some of your bigger ones, where you screw into the back. And the panels are a little tricky, you don't really want to screw into them because they're thin, but usually you'll have a spacer or a strainer bar or something to screw in to hold that in place. And I think that's about it for color. And does anybody have any questions? Did anybody have any comment? Anything that you find interesting or you don't? Or you want to know more about?
I thought showing the double one was very different because I don't remember you ever recommending that to any of the pieces that...
It's 2 frames and you're tight on space. You bought a lot of artwork. You framed a lot of things, and sometimes when you don't have a lot of wall space, we don't always go for bigger.
Bigger,
If
okay.
you want something to be a focal point, then sometimes we get a little fancier with double frames and liners. You can use one frame on top of another. It doesn't have to be a liner. A little hard to do for the example because I didn't bring the right sizes.
And because Sarah...
But yeah, you can get, two-tone.
Two-tone, right.
And it's a nice look. It gives you a little more depth and a little more outline.
And the fact that Sarah puts the information right on the back, there's no paper backing.
You don't have to pay. You can paper back them. The paper
But then you
backing
would
is
lose
just
all of the information.
It's still there. I mean, the paper backing is just a dust cover to keep the back of the thing clean. It's not necessary to have it, but it does keep dust out of the backing. So there's a couple ways you can do it. With a piece on panel, you don't have to put anything on the backing. Put it in frame. I'm going to put your picture in there. Put frames in there. The frame's a little bigger than your panel. So this is a point gun. It's kind of a fancy staple gun. It just shoots little points that hold, little tabs that hold it into the frame. So you can leave this like this and just put the wire on without a paper backing.
Right.
Or you can do a dust cover.
So that's not going into the art at all, that's going right
No,
into the
it goes
frame.
above the art. And this particular one is a flexible one, so you can bend it and take it back out easy.
Okay.
There's permanent ones too. Normally you put a few around the sides.
Yeah, that's what I use when I'm framing mine.
So the dust cover is just for dust, which if you had like canvas or something other than a board, it's harder to dust. Like, you'd be more concerned of dirt getting
There's
into
stretcher
the back
bars
of
and there's stuff and spiders and it just keeps it cleaner. It's really, that's all it's for.
Isn't that more important if it's a piece of paper, like if it's, and you have matte?
It's just about the back of the framing. Like dust can get in here. If you keep a picture hung on the wall for years and years and years and you don't take it down and dust it out, there's stuff back there.
I've had spider webs back there.
Yeah. I have someone asking, how do you frame a wet panel if you're doing a plein air event?
There's a good tricky question.
You
You
just
might be
frame
better.
it.
You just
I
pop
can get
it
on
in
for
there.
that. Yeah, I've been there, and you just it's expected that you just frame it. You pop it in the frame, and it might get stuck in there.
Yeah, you just accept that if you ever want to move it out, you're messing up the paint end.
So this is, as a framer, wet panel framing is a nightmare because if it stays in there, it will stick to the frame.
It will stick.
Right.
And if you take it out of the frame, you risk damaging the frame.
Yeah.
But if you put it in a floater frame, the edges aren't covered. So that is a good way to do it. Floater frames are a little tricky to install while it's wet.
Yeah, that's the problem with the floater frames is you really have to think ahead because I like to weight my floater, and you can't do that if it's wet.
Well, and you also, it's harder to carry it.
It's harder to carry it because that's all. If that's all wet,
This is all wet on the front.
and you really have to protect it. I really just pop the wet thing in. There aren't that much of the edges that are wet really, and if it doesn't sell at the event, I try to get it out of the frame as soon as possible.
That's
And
really
I-
the trick. If you
and
can
I-
take it out that day,
Or
if it
even
doesn't
the
sell,
yeah.
and then put it in when it's cured a little bit.
Yeah, and I haven't had too much trouble with damage. And if I've popped it out and a little thing is flaked off, you can repair that.
The artist can.
The artist, you can repair that with a little touch up. It takes a minute or two.
The advantage to a regular frame for a wet painting is when you put it upside down, the painting's not touching the
Yeah.
table when you install it. I would say if I was doing plein air with a floater frame, I would consider, this is a thought I have, haven't done it, but I would consider, if you did a floater frame, you could actually get Velcro dots that self-stick. So you could stick one part on the frame with the self-stick part, and then the other part matching on the back of your panel. So when you're done painting it, you just lay it on there and it's in.
You better
for the
lay it
show.
in right though.
Yeah, because
Lay it
you're
in
not
right.
you're not moving it around with your fingers when it's wet.
And I would do it where the floater, the panel was actually inset a little bit versus mine are really sticking out.
Well, you use the ones that have step, I think.
I put a step in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because the panel.
So-
If you paint on a canvas, a stretched canvas, you have the stretcher bar has a little depth, and the floater frames these days are more designed for that, so they pop right in, and they're usually a little below the surface.
Mhm.
On the Velcro thing, if you were going to do that, actually, in second thinking about it more, I would put the whole set stuck together in the floater frame, and then set it down. But you
Right,
can't
'cause-
press on it, so it's a little tricky. It's
Mm.
all a little
gets
tricky
tricky.
with wet
Yeah,
paint.
plein air. Yeah.
As far as putting them in, if you can use a point gun, you can use a ready-made frame that has flexible points in it, so that you can just have it ready to drop the painting in. And then as long as your painting's not too tight to the edge, and that is a framing thing, your painting's not supposed to be too tight to the edge because you're allowing for the expansion and contraction of all the materials. The frames expand and contract. If your painting is in super tight, something's got to give, and it's usually the frame corners that separate. So when you get a frame and your picture's floating around in a little bit, that's you don't want the edges to show, but you want it to have a little space between the edge of the frame and the painting.
Is that only for panels, or do...
That's for everything. If you frame art on paper with matting and the glass, everything's expanding and contracting at a different rate. So the frame is expanding and contracting. If the glass is too tight, it doesn't have any place to go, so that separates the frame corners. If the paper is too tight in a frame and it expands with moisture, that's when you get wavy paper, because it doesn't have any place to go to expand. That's another function of a mat, is you only hinge the art at the top of the mat so that if paper expands on its own, thinner paper like newsprint and that sort of thing will expand more, and they just get wavy. And if you tape it all the way around, it's got no place to go but up, so it's going to get wavier. We can do a paper framing discussion with some of your figure work at some point, because I love your figure drawing. Is there any other questions?
So you showed that one piece with 3 different frames.
Uh-huh.
So we decide to get that frame because we like the way it brings out the colors. But then after a year, we decide, we want to bring out something else in that piece, or, we have another piece that has similar colors. How easy is it to swap out frames?
Easy. It's as long as they're not painted into them. They're not stuck.
Okay.
And even if they are, like if it were stuck into this frame, you could cap this frame with another frame.
Mhm.
So framing's not permanent. You can change it as often as you change anything else in your house. It gets expensive because it's custom, like custom anything else, but it is not permanent. You can change them as often as you want.
Yeah, but it is interesting how 3 different frames
Yeah.
bring out 3
Exactly.
different characteristics of that one piece.
Yeah, it's that when the more color there is, and more different variety of color there are in the pieces, the more options you have for a frame, and that's when you want to decide whether you want to be more neutral. That's where sometimes you're not always framed to the room, but you want it to work in the room. So if you have a lot of gray in your room, you might go with a gray frame, or you might go with a light frame to contrast the gray if the wall is gray. The only time I've really seen things not work great is if you have a strong colored wall. And I think this one actually. I don't think this color works well on this. The yellow should be setting off this blue because they're complementary colors. Even, I think this would still work.
It gets a little lost.
That gets a little lost. I think white or a stronger color. This is a navy, which I think is probably a little too dark for this, but it's a nice, strong alternative to black. It's going to pop on a yellow wall because they're contrasting colors, the yellow and the blue. So that's going to give it a stronger statement without being black. So if you want more color, you could go with a navy blue. If you want something more neutral, you could go to the black, or this is you probably can't, it looks black, I'm sure on camera, but it's a very dark brown. But that shows the painting up completely differently on a strong color wall. On a white wall, you can do almost anything, and it'll go well. I brought a gold, but I don't know that. Oh. So this brings out a whole different set of colors. This would not work on a yellow wall.
Whoa, no. On your off-white wall, it's okay. I don't think the gold does a whole lot for this one, but some people, I've known people who will only use gold to frame original art. I
like the gold against the teal wall.
The gold will look nice against the teal wall, and actually this picture, I'm going to go out of my...
You can move.
I am here.
You can move.
This gold has a little tiny blue-gray line that picks up some of this. It's a little less flat and yellow than that other gold, and it would look nice on a blue wall.
Yeah, that works.
Mm. So even though the other gold frame didn't look great on it, this ties in the blue, and depending on the setting, will work. I think that's one of the things that's the most interesting that people don't think about is how the different colors look on one piece. Mm-hmm. There's no right and wrong. You can frame however you want, whatever you like, but there are things that will bring out different parts of the piece.
That's where your expertise is
We're
invaluable.
happy to give you an opinion. If I have anything else fun. Yeah, just a darker gray. Same idea. But it's not black, but it's a little more subtle. And you can see the different shapes do different things. With Sarah's work being more urban, a clean line works better than something that's more like we tried that one that was a more traditional furniture finish, and that just doesn't work as well. I don't think I would do that.
I would agree.
Any other thoughts? As far as the other question about the dust cover and covering the information on the back, you don't have to have it anyway. It just keeps dust and spiders and things out. But the joy of our new technology is you can take a picture of this with your cell phone, you can print it out, and you can put that on the back of the dust cover. So if you still want the dust cover to keep it clean, you keep the information on the outside where you can see it, but it's still in here. I have to say, my phone camera is my most used tool in the shop now, and it's for stuff like that. You've got figure drawings in there that have work on both sides.
Yeah.
People don't always want to cover that up. Okay. And double-sided framing is a whole thing that's hard to do. So it's easy now. You take a picture of it, you put it on the back, and everybody knows there's another picture on the back of your piece. All the tools I have, and the camera, my cell phone camera is my big favorite. So yeah. That's kind of a little taste of color in framing for oils and panels.
I think that's been very insightful. Enlightening, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any questions, Mitchell, on mine? Okay.
All right. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much. And again, it's Talleyville Frame Shoppe.
Yes.
And we'll put the information on the caption, or we'll tag you.
Yeah, we're on Facebook too.
On Facebook, we'll put all that information down. And I just thank you for coming. And I think we've all learned something today. So
appreciate being here.
So thank you. And everybody have a good day. Thank you.